Story RH, the podcast that makes a long story short.
Welcome to all.
History is made of stories.
In this episode, we'll be talking about change.
Change is a part of our daily professional lives. We're constantly being told that we have to change because of all the risk and uncertainty out there in the world. The COVID-19 crisis has been an eloquent reminder.
But wasn't the fabled before just as uncertain? Didn't we already need to change? Is transformation really a new concept? Or is it just a normal part of life? What's the story?
Let's start by reminding everyone that company transformation goes far beyond the digital transformation we're always hearing about.
So, what do change and transformation really mean in the business world? It means going from version A to version B, where A and B are different.
And the versions we're referring to here are all about organization, the way we produce and work. And that is, of course, tied to the very popular notion of agility.
In fact, it's really about the need to adapt. Our current organizational structures were designed with a single goal in mind: productivity and, as a result, profitability, with Taylorism playing a major role. But what companies really need now is to combine methods for achieving productivity with others that foster agility.
And that's the problem. This dual imperative of productivity and agility is the cause behind our need for change. The Taylorist models you mentioned have reached their limits. We need to adapt them to our needs. We need to change.
But change into what? Granted, the Taylorist model doesn't work anymore. That's our version A, but what's version B? Where are we headed? Where can we find the ideal model which we can apply in every circumstance? To be done with change for once and for all.
Breaking news hot off the presses, there is no ideal model, as the multitude of managerial styles has shown.
So, what does it really mean for a company to undergo a transformation?
It means creating the conditions for profitability in the here and now, but also for the future. In other words, it means creating the means for the company to adapt quickly and effectively to changes in situation, context, and the world around us more broadly speaking.
At the most fundamental level, it's a question of how you see reality. It's about discernment, which brings us back to critical thinking. It's also about your experience of in proximity to reality. You need people on the ground who are able to work independently, to take the initiative. It's about promoting a company culture that understands and accepts risk.
What we're trying to say is that there isn't one single transformation. It's not one size fits all, just like for organizational structures.
It's about a transformation that enables a company to adopt an organizational structure, which will itself be constantly changing in order to adapt and keep pace with internal and external shifts.
Exactly, and this imperative to adapt to the constraints or reality, which are constantly changing, is precisely the one thing that we are reasonably sure will not be changing. Nothing is permanent, except change, as Heraclitus said, long before or before, like BC before.
When it comes down to it, change is normal and constant. It's adaptation. Something we've all more or less understood since Darwin validated the theory of evolution.
And, like I said, that won't be changing anytime soon.
But then why is transformation such a big deal then? Why do we talk about it so much these days?
Maybe because today's constraints are harder to navigate, or because the rate of change has picked up. You can see it, for example, in the number of global crises in recent years. Or maybe because transformation has become a trend. The story doesn't say.
To recap, change is the ability to adapt as quickly as possible to a context and constraints which are constantly evolving to ensure profitability and efficiency, both today and in the future. The goal isn't to transform into a new rigid, unchanging structure, but to make our ability to adapt sustainable in the long term, because change never stops. It's both normal and constant. Is that right?
Exactly right. Way to make a long story short.
Story RH, the podcast that makes a long story short.